One of my greatest honors was when I was called and asked to be the new artistic director of the Skylight Music Theatre. This is definitely a company that's unique in the world. One of the few companies I've ever heard of that produces every sort of musical theater, from Broadway musicals to operetta to opera, all in one house. And when you walk through these doors and you see the incredible jewel box of a theater that we have, it's really amazing to realize that you can see every single face, every single stitch in every costume. You get to experience the show as if you're on stage with the singers and actors. It's a beautiful place to see a performance, and it's an even greater honor to be able to put those performances on stage. The staff at the Skylight is really one of the most incredible I've worked with. Every single person here truly believes in the company and does everything they can to make the art the greatest possible art we can get on stage. All the productions are built in-house. We have a scene shop that constructs every single set piece you see on stage. The costumes are also built in-house. One of the greatest costume shops I've ever seen. This season is all about revolution. In looking at the season, what I wanted to try and do was build a conversation with all of you. So I hope you'll feel free to interact with us and be a part of our season in a way that we haven't tried before. We want to hear what you think of the season, but we also want to be able to build a conversation around the idea of revolution, freedom, and liberty with you. Now, Fidelio doesn't seem like it's a work that would necessarily fit on the Cabot stage. But as I thought about it more, I realized that it could be done in a way that is much more intimate and much less grandiose, and still communicate exactly what the show should communicate. But in order to add a twist, because it wouldn't be me if I didn't, we decided to pursue a Bollywood direction on that show. The entire show is going to be choreographed and danced Bollywood style. So I'm really looking forward to taking you all to India via Germany with Beethoven. The show next, of course, is Les Miserables, the centerpiece of our season. And I think it's one of the better possible shows we could have for a holiday show.
The Skylight has this wonderful energy about it. I love to work here because there's this intense passion always, but also a very incredible sense of play. And that makes for a really invigorating, exciting work environment. It's a great place to be. This is going to be the first professional production of Les Miserables mounted here in Milwaukee. And an opportunity to see it, to hear it live in the intimacy of the Cabot Theatre is simply an opportunity that is not to be missed. This is arguably the most famous musical of our generation. The historical backdrop for this show is the Paris Uprising of 1832. So revolution is a very, very specific part of this story, and even beyond that, the entire story is couched in this context. It's about redemption. It's about second chances. It's about how we want to spend our time on this earth, what is worth fighting for, who we will fight for. It's a very epic tale, and it shows us the best and the worst of humanity. It demands that we look at how we treat our fellow man.
The first studio show of the season is Hans Werner Henze's El Cimarron. We're really excited to be partnering with New York City's Center for Contemporary Opera to produce the show. I'm even more excited by the fact that we're producing the show and putting it together here in Milwaukee and exporting it to New York City.
Having worked with the Center for Contemporary Opera, I have experienced the friendly mentality and professional conditions of the company. I was very happy to discover the same with all my communication with the Skylight team, a great environment of work and creation. I would also like to point out that I find very significant the fact that the Skylight for the season 2013-2014 explores the ideas of freedom and revolution. El Cimarron is a great choice. The opera is based on the real story of Esteban Montejo, a cimarron, which means a runaway slave during the War of Independence. This is the late 19th century. In the mid-60s, the ethnologist Miguel Barnett meets Esteban and writes a great book on his life. Apart from the content of the operatic work, which discusses highly important matters like oppression, injustice, racism, the music alternates between singing and recitative. It is the musical excellence of Hans Werner Henze and the poetic language of Hans Magnus Enzensberger who writes the libretto.
In the Heights is a very personal show to me. It's a show that talks all about trying to find your place in the world, trying to deal with other people's expectations of you, and finding the freedom to be the person you are. They're all very personal because I experienced them when I decided to go into music from biology. As a pre-med and having my own expectations of being a doctor, I had to figure out how to change those in my head and pursue what I loved, which is music. And then we have Hydrogen Jukebox, a wonderful musical theater piece by Philip Glass and Allen Ginsberg, the Beat poet. I'm really excited to be able to bring the first Philip Glass theater piece to the Skylight in its history. Philip Glass, of course, is an incredibly important American composer. He's written everything from film music to chamber music to orchestral music to opera to theater, and in a lot of ways helped revolutionize the way we conceive of music in the US.
I'm really pleased to come to Skylight and work on Hydrogen Jukebox, which is this piece by Philip Glass and Ginsberg, a really unique collaboration that takes one of the great works of American 20th century poetry and turns it into something dramatic. And I think that Skylight has a great history of making interesting fusions between music and drama, and so that's what I'm looking forward to being a part of.
The second studio show of the season is Darren Hagen's I Hear America Singing. We're excited to have Darren back. Darren Hagen grew up here in Milwaukee and has become one of the great American opera composers. In fact, a few months ago, 7 of his operas were in production around the world, all at the same time. It's great to be able to collaborate with a hometown boy and to be able to put a show like that together with Darren Hagen himself directing.
Hello, my name is Darren Eric Hagen. I'm making my debut at Skylight Opera this year, directing a review about American musical theater and American opera. I grew up in Milwaukee. I graduated Brookfield Central High School in 1979 and grew up listening to the Milwaukee Symphony and Skylight, Milwaukee Rep, the ballet, and the Florentines. Why do I think folks should see it? Well, because it's going to be a ripping evening of theater, and it will be informative, and it'll be fun, and it will take us on a journey. I've concocted, sort of a harebrained story of several singers getting together, perhaps in an Auden-esque fashion, to discuss the nature of their lives and the music world and the theater. They're getting ready for auditions. They're all coming off the road, and this little symposium is something that we, as opera singers and theater people, we actually do this over breakfast in the morning during production.
And finally, we have Hair. I'm not sure I need to say a lot since it's the dawning of the age of Aquarius, but Hair was one of the first musical theater pieces to ever have a radio presence. And so I think most of you will recognize almost every single song you hear from it. And it should be a very exciting way to end the season.
And what excites me about working on Hair is, again, how much I love the show, how important I think the show is in terms of the history of music theater and the history of the USA in the 20th century. I think it's a real document for a specific time period, but because it's such a wonderful work of art, it translates and is very contemporary and speaks to audiences today as well. We're still sending young men and women to war, and we're still struggling with use of language, racial issues, sexual issues, and fulfilling your own destiny. I think all of those things are still things that people are struggling with, and that's what Hair is about.
Along with the incredible music theater and opera that we're bringing you this season, I hope you'll also join us for conversations that build around the shows. This season, you'll see us putting together lecture discussions on a variety of subjects that have to do with revolution and freedom, whether it's about Allen Ginsberg and his beat poetry and going to the Supreme Court, or films that may have something to do about revolution and freedom. This season is going to be all about those ideas, and we hope that you'll join us in that conversation, not only through our shows, which I hope you see all of, but also through the other programs that we put together this season.